Hey everybody, it is Lauren Delisa Coleman for the Inside series here at Film.io. We are bringing you a bunch of different interviews for the Sundance Film Festival 2022. This next one I'm so into bringing to you because New Frontiers, for those who may not know, is a portion of Sundance Film Festival which really kind of highlights and brings together all of what might be considered emerging filmmakers, anything and everything dealing with VR, AR, AI, etc. And so unfortunately no one will see this physically this year, but we are so lucky to be able to bring you one of the filmmakers. This will be our first interview, I think, too, as well, with one of the filmmakers from the New Frontiers section, even though now it's virtual. So I want you to please join me in welcoming Gilles Jobin, who's not only our first filmmaker from New Frontiers, but he's coming to us live and direct from Geneva, Switzerland. So, Gilles, thanks so much for joining us here at the Inside Series.
Hello. How are you?
Definitely good now that we are in sync and ready to talk about your film. The film is called Cosmogony, and it is, of course, I will let Gilles do the honors, but in essence, kind of 3D VR extravaganza around dance. So, Gilles, why don't you, give us a kind of description around all of this, which is always very challenging, when it's something that's, VR and all that. But be that as it may, go for it.
Well, actually, it's not a VR piece; it's a projection. But yes, it's made.
Oh, my mistake!
In
I thought it had
space.
VR elements as well when I was reading about it.
Well, I worked in VR, so that's what I do. So we work in it's a 3D space, but what we do is a projection. So basically, it's a live. It's almost like live cinema. So you have dancers that are being motion captured in Geneva, 3 dancers. They are motion captured live in our studio in Geneva. And the result is projected. And the image you see behind me is one of the image of the performance. So that's what people see. They get this projection. And it was supposed to be at the Egyptian for in-presence audience. But of course, because the festival is now only digital, we are only performing it in the spaceship, which is the virtual cinema of New Frontier. So we have 4 performances, and they're all live performances. So it's quite exceptional, really.
It really is. I'm so excited to be able to see this because, as you guys know, we're doing a lot of these in anticipation of the festival. We just figured it would be easier for everybody's schedule to do just a couple of days before the festival starts, so we can really grill them about their projects as they have the time. So this will be coming up. So many questions, Gilles. First of all, how do you even begin to coordinate something like that, obviously remotely, because that was it your plan, or were you guys going to come from, Europe, or you were not going to come initially anyway? What's been the change for you guys since the festival has changed?
Yeah, that was the plan. The plan was to perform from Geneva all along.
Oh, so luckily it's not too disruptive. Good.
Well, losing the Egyptian, which is an iconic theater in Park City, is a heartbreaker.
But it's not that you were going to all, bring the entire troupe physically,
no,
now you
that
have
was,
to regroup on that.
Yeah. And the idea, Shari Freilot from the curator of the New Frontier, for her, what's very important is the idea of being able to project it at the Egyptian in front of in-presence audience and simultaneously in the spaceship. So this piece is what is special about it is that we can multiply the projection sites. Basically it's work like a online gaming. People, like locally you have a server, you generate your game, and then you send your position data to a server. And the other players, they would connect to the server, and then they can be together in the game in front of each other. So that's what we do. We send the data of the motion capture to a server, and the Sundance get connected and then projected to their audience. So it's quite remarkable in terms of technology that we can do this without any lagging and like a really in a very kind of immediate way. So I think that's something that is only possible and feasible since not so many years that you can start to imagine even this type of project. So it's a project that came out, out of the pandemic. In 2020, we were at Sundance. We were presenting a piece, an app called Dance Trail. And I remember when we were there, when I received this phone call from some Chinese partner telling me, oh, don't come to China. We canceled this trip. It's just, it's a disaster. And then we came back to Switzerland. That's when COVID started. And at this moment, we were working on a duo, a stage piece with motion capture, live and projection on the back for normal audience. So, but when COVID came down and lockdown came in, I decided to cancel this project and to move on like full on digital. So all the technology we developed for this project for the stage, we kind of reversed it to put it for the digital world. So we developed a lot of tools to be able to play in real time, send all the different effects, the movement of cameras, the change of avatars, everything is happening live as it happened, just like a live performance. So that's quite challenging to put together also technically.
I was going to say, yeah, talk to us a little bit, if you will, about the kind of technological prowess that entails, and really kind of more of, I guess, even the behind the scenes, that you have to do in preparation to pull something like that off. What is that kind of like, and how big is the team, and what is it like, and how did you pull them together?
Yeah, so we're a fairly small team. I have a 3D artist, a technologist, a developer, a lead dance artist, myself, and also someone for motion capture. And we have our own motion capture studio, so we are fully autonomous. And now what we try to do to develop our own tech, so we can really develop what we need for the use that we have. So we always kind of prototyping. But this live system that we have to do live performances is something that we developed in the last 2 years. Since the pandemic, we were really into this with different projects, which is the idea is to connect with other artists to collaborate at a distance. We can invite any motion capture system into the same 3D space. So we develop all this kind of tech, and it has become a tool. So we use this tool to produce pieces, and one of the pieces is Cosmogony. And in terms of dance, is also quite interesting because, of course, our space is reduced. It's about 5 meters by 7 meters, and I have 3 dancers, but they dance in a big city. They become like huge dancers, like the one behind me, or a very small one. I multiply them, so we really have to understand how to move in a small space, but to pretend to be in a big one. And we have all this movement of cameras that grow. It's like a big island, a city, and it's a journey through this kind of world of kind of a fantastic world. It's difficult to explain, because it's very empiric. It's like you have to start from somewhere, and then you have really to make a composition between the tech, what is feasible, what might be feasible, and what is, and find some artistic solution to technical problems. So we have this back and forth between the tech and the creation. So we learn every time more, and we give every time more space for the performers to use and to play with the tools, and not wait all the time, because that's one of the characteristics of working with tech, is a lot of waiting around.
Absolutely.
So we need to create also a new lexicon. How do we speak with each other, with the tech people and the more art people and the dancers? We have to create this kind of common space, and it's like very interesting, and it just has it became just more important now, because now it has it's useful, and before it was maybe just like a tech fantasy, and now we see that no, it can really support. And actually we have a demonstration today, and the way Sundance also could switch from an hybrid festival to a digital festival without major, well, of course it's major changing for the organization, but at the end of the day there's this continuum, no? So yeah, we are learning this new normal thing, and for us it's very, we're a dance company mainly, so what we do is dance performances. So we stopped touring. We were touring a lot, traveling a lot, and from one day to another we stopped touring. So we have to think, how can we tour without traveling? And that's the solution that we found, is this kind of performance. And then Cosmogony is like the summum of what we are able to do at the moment.
It's just really fascinating, Gilles, because like you said, you're bringing together and having to solve for creative issues around dance and technology at the same time. So talk to us a little bit about your background, in dance, and then how you were able to, kind of make that leap into the tech space, or really the integration of the two, because that's not kind of your area of expertise to begin with. Now it is, right? And you are leading that whole kind of new challenge. But how did things kind of start for you there in Switzerland in the dance community?
Well, I mean, it's unfolded. Life is sometimes just chance encounters. And I think for me, it's all started. I did a residency at CERN, which is the particle physics lab in Geneva, and I was a resident artist for 3 months.
Very
It kind of opened my mind to science, and I started to understand that I can understand things that I don't. Like I can understand the general idea of particle physics without being a particle physicist, and that was a big. Can seem simple for some, but for me it was like it really opened my mind. And then it was this encounter that the piece that we presented at Sundance. Sundance is very important in our development because we did this piece called VRI, which was an immersive VR piece. 5 people with mark on the hand on their bodies, and they could see themselves as avatar and interact with each other. And the piece was very successful. And then we got invited again by Sundance 2 years later with an app. So that was an app for an iPhone called Dance Trail, who can place dancers in the space, still available actually on the App Store. You can try it. And then we came with this piece. So there was this, suddenly you start to see that, so like a film festival like Sundance is interesting in what we do. And somehow this choreographic language that we've been, developing since I started to be a choreographer in 1995. So, I'm a late boomer, so I'm old enough also to have seen all the evolution of what you can do now with the digitalization of everything.
Right.
And that was the thing. It was just following this intuition. And when I was ready to bring everything back on stage, COVID came in. So I say, well, okay, let's just continue to dig into this inside those new territories. And for me as a choreographer, I consider the digital space as new territories. In the 60s in New York, like you had dancers dancing on the roofs of New York and in the parks, and people are like, oh, this is not dance, it's not in a theater. And it was like really like, ooh, and now it's very normal and very common that, you can dance anywhere.
Yeah, that's cool that you make that kind of connection. Yes.
So I think the digital space is a similar situation. It's like it's not supposed to be. It exists, but it was not really accessible. Like scuba diving. Scuba diving is quite recent, so you can now buy an equipment and scuba dive. Is quite accessible to anyone, but expensive, but accessible. And I think the digital space is the same. It's but expensive. You need some gear to get in. But it's there, and it's always been there. We just need to, access. And maybe one last thing is the many different doors. You can enter with different doors. You can enter in VR. You can enter with a screen, projecting, which makes it much more accessible to a wider audience. You can do an AR piece. You can even print, if you make 3D. So, these. You can integrate robotic arms or haptic inside the 3D space. So there's many different ways to get inside this space. And this is happening a little bit everywhere, I think, also on stage. You see more projections, you see more, when I started, video projectors were just like massive and very low light. We didn't have video cameras. Digital camera didn't exist. There's so many things that... So there's a big acceleration, and it's very exciting. I can do things that I could, I cannot have a 20-25 meter high dancer. It doesn't exist, Right. But in VR or in the digital space, I can do it.
So now, Gilles, obviously you're somebody who's very comfortable with moving between worlds. What kind of either advice or tips might you have for somebody who's maybe not quite as comfortable, right? Or who maybe is where you were back at the beginning of the pandemic, and kind of would really appreciate some guidance on how to find a team or how to be able to, just even stay up on what's going on. I mean, it kind of just reminds me of, when you talk to different startup founders who want to have a co-founder, and they're like, how do you find a co-founder? It's not something where you can just write out that recipe, right? So if you are coming from a more traditional creative space and you want to partner with somebody who is in that emerging creative space, or just a true full-on, VR engineer, how did you find people who you were comfortable with, who had sensibilities around dance as well as their own expertise, to be able to really respect and appreciate what you were doing and bring something to the table aside from just the tech piece? You know what I mean? Because to create what you've created with Cosmogony, it's not just like you telling people where to put stuff who are in the tech game, right? That's a real blessing of a cool team coming together. Did you have to go through, a lot of kiss a lot of frogs, as they say, before you met your tech princes, or what happened?
No, I got my prince. I found my prince right away. I mean, I think to start is like, if you're a dancer, if you're coming from the performing art or from the art world, you will need someone that can support the tech. So you need, technologists, someone that can be the interface between your art and the tech, and help you to understand what are the limitations, what are the possibilities, what kind of, the big problem is the resources that you have at your disposition. It's money, but not only money. Do you have a studio? You don't have a studio? Do you have dancers? Do you have people around you? How much do you have to start with? So you need someone to help, to guide, I think, at the start. And in parallel, one must learn. And now it's very easy to learn, because you just follow people that you like, follow artists that you like, and very quickly, on Twitter, on social network, you can just follow things that interest you, and little by little you do start to see and receive the news about everything that's going on. So right. That's quite, it's still a small world. And then if you're an artist, then you can reach out. There's people in universities sometimes that are interested,
Great
people
idea.
that come out of formation, that maybe want to start a project and they're ready for experimentation. And then you have to create the context for research. It's very essential and super important to research. You cannot, if you're investigating, you cannot decide before you start the investigation what's going to be the result. Otherwise, that will be a production for Hollywood or for a theme park, when you want people to laugh and cry, and you want the expected result. But in what we do, we never know how it's going to turn out, because it's a combination of what's feasible, what are your, what is your budget, how much time you can spend on this, what is the outcome, and also for me it's very important to define what is the position of the spectator. So that's the main question, because if the spectator or the participant is in a kind of awkward, not so well-defined position, then there's always this kind of, what I'm doing here, what I'm supposed to do, what is my position, what I'm and I think in all of the pieces, I haven't seen them, of course, yet, but I'm pretty sure, and I know Shari and the curator team, that's what they look for in their program, is that the piece that when you get inside, what is your why you are there, no? So I think that's very important. And try, and of course go to, Sundance now is very accessible. It used to be like totally exclusive and super expensive to go up the mountain and be there in presence, especially lodging. So now you can, for $50, you have access to the whole New Frontier program. So this is also, I think, a democratization of this, and it's necessary. We need to have an ecosystem. For instance, there is a little, I think, growing community, for instance, of dancers that do motion capture. I met a dancer her name is Ilya in Hong Kong, for instance. I saw her on Instagram. She has a motion capture suit, and we're talking and we're doing things. So there's people in England, some people. There is another also live piece in the program called Sugar from Valencia James. Very, very interesting also project. So, it's happening. It's happening. And dance is, choreography is a good language because it's non-narrative. It leaves a lot of room for interpretation for the audience, so that gives a lot of freedom, and it's a good canvas for tech because it's meaningful, but it's not narrative.
I think that's really great, a great way to put it, and great tips prior. Finally, I guess I'd love to hear from you because you've been to Sundance several times. His hat, you guys, even shows you that, right? Why do you think it's so important to have New Frontiers at Sundance, that particular kind of section, and to have that included? I mean, not many film festivals have that type of area dedicated to kind of emerging or innovation as it pertains to creativity. Why do you think, having been involved for a couple of years and see it kind of expand, why is that important to you as a creative or just to the creative community?
Well, I think for us as artists, it's a very important labelization of what we do. Is the recognition. It's like not so many people are there. So just the fact that you are there is already kind of something that you can rely on. It gives you somehow more support, more presence as an artist. And also they started for quite a long time. I mean, I'm not even about, just the spirit of the festival is just like fantastic from the very start, by Robert Redford. But then when they had this new tech kind of idea, they just give, a worldwide platform to this kind of niche experiments. But I think they're forcing, because they know that inside these niches there will be the new mainstream, and I think they're not only doing for mainstream, which is the other good thing about Sundance. Sundance is not about mainstream; it's kind of became mainstream, but it's just like some stuff that are so good that they so many people love them and they become mainstream, but that's not their goal. So I think they have this very interesting balance, and they are very close from the industry, in Hollywood, and all this kind of I think is very clever. And also what I like about Sundance, they have this mix, maybe not this year so much, but the first year I was there was some art stuff, but also almost some demo of some tech, like some haptic gloves or some things that they felt were interesting for us.
Yes.
And the audience.
Yeah, it's a very good mix of what's coming, right? It's not all VR, it's not all AR, whatever. It's just really a very, very unique and very inspiring.
Yes, and they talk about the bio-digital
curation
continuum
of people like you guys. Last question: how did you decide on the title of this, Gilles? Cosmogony.
Well, cosmogony means is the history of the cosmos is as a science, but the cosmogony is also, every people on Earth, they have their own cosmogony, which is the history of the creation, with their myth and legend. So, these giant dancers, and it gave me an open enough title. And also there is some elements of space because, the camera goes also through space and you see the dancers like moving to space. So it has quite a lot of element of space, and it's funny because when we are in the spaceship projecting cosmogony, we are in space as well. So you have like a double space. You're like in the space of the spaceship and the space of the piece. And there is other pieces about space as well. There's one that's called Flat Earth VR, which I'm looking forward to see because our Earth is also a little bit flat. And there's also an AR piece with the Earth, which is about mobile phone in Congo. So there's a very interesting program. So you should really go to the spaceship and
yeah, and I love how they're calling it the spaceship, where everybody is going to be gathered, where you can see actually all of these just wonderful, wonderful projects that New Frontiers is promoting inside of this virtual spaceship. You guys, can easily access it through the Sundance Film Festival site. Gilles, I mean, just really congratulations on this. I know it was a ton of work, to put together and then to pull off in real time, and having to kind of change up things, but I'm sure it's very rewarding, and I can't wait to see what you do next, because you are really out there as a pioneer, and one who is not afraid, it seems like, as well, to just try different things and see kind of what happens and to stretch your imagination. Love
We
it.
were talking with my team yesterday, and that you have to be bold sometimes because in these times, because your tech must be pretty robust to pretend to perform in Geneva and screen it in in Park City. So that's what we do, and amazingly, it kind of worked. Apparently, we did yesterday the press run. It was perfect.
That's great. Well, congrats and good luck for all the upcoming performances during Sundance, and thank you so much for taking out
Thank you.
time there in Geneva to be able to speak with us. Looking forward, like I said, to what you have coming up next year. Oh, by the way, as you said, you can follow people who you're interested in, etc. What's the best way to be able to follow you, or the production company, what have you, to be able to just like stay up on what's next from you guys?
Yes, I mean, my name Gilles Jobin, company Gilles Jobin, CIE Gilles Jobin. You will find me everywhere.
Okay, and that
No
is,
problem.
just so you guys
Instagram,
know, with the
Twitter.
fabulous French accent. So Gilles,
Thank you.
Gilles, and then Jobin, Jobin. So there you have it.
Yes.
All right,
There you have
Gilles.
it.
Again, thank you
Thank
so
you so much. And you
much.
can also meet us at the bar in the spaceship because after the
Oh well,
performance,
there
we
you
go
have
to
it.
the. So if you have questions, you can come and meet me and the
Great
rest of the team.
idea. Yep. The bar at the spaceship, all virtual.
Yes. Thank
Yeah,
you.
this has been a lot of fun. I hope that you guys have enjoyed listening to this. Do check out, just the whole spaceship, New Frontiers, etc., inside of Sundance Film Festival. Of course, the site. It is really, it's a shame, that no one will be able to see these elements physically this year, but, virtually it's going to be, I'm sure, very, very hot. So check it out. All right, so we've got just more and more interviews coming for you guys, all from wonderful filmmakers during the Sundance Film Festival. I am Lauren Delisa Coleman for the Inside series right here at film.io.